morning. Excellent. Welcome to the workshop. This is Category 3 workshop. How many of us have attended a Math Category 1 or Category 2 workshop? Let's say Category 1. How many of you have attended? I like to have an idea as to which participants have attended Category 1 or 2. It helps me see where they are in their understanding, and that helps me differentiate, just as we do in a classroom. Is take a post-it from here, and please write your name, and next to it a small math symbol. And over there, where you see this chart of the implementation dip, if you could go up and place where you think you are today. And then tomorrow, I want you to take the post-it and move it to the place where you think you are tomorrow. Maybe you have a better understanding, or maybe you got it. So each day, I want us to change. What we model in the workshops is, this is the destination, and I need to get to that destination, but it's important to know where I am now so that I see how I can get to where I want to get. So it helps getting an idea of where the participants are, and then see whether the next day there has been a change, and finally, where would we like to see them at the end of the workshop.
I'm going to give each group one of the New York Times sections, and if you would read through it and pick an article, any article, read it together, and now here's where your creativity skills are going to kick in. What would you come up with as a general subject? It could just inspire you to come up with something completely different.
Because those are a little bit unique.
It's very important that our main focus should always go back to our students. And so in my workshops, what I try to do is to engage the participants in activities which they sort of do a little role playing. They're putting themselves in the student's shoes.
And then they've got to come up with a way to test for the presence of bacteria.
But they have to, so they're going to do the research and then they'll be able to say within this.
It's very effective because the teachers have to use their own creativity and critical thinking skills to determine how they would counsel the student, where they would bring them on the journey to coming up with a suitable research question for their extended essay.
And that sort of led into another discussion about the safety of pork and the effect of antibiotics within pork.
And something a student could measure would be to what extent does bacterial presence vary between...
Another recommendation that I would make to new workshop leaders is that you always have a lot of strategies and activities that you bring with you to a workshop. Depending upon the size of your group and the group dynamics, you have to be prepared to have other things that you can pull out of your bag, so to speak.
So it's just having a bag of resources, and that's why the librarian's role could be critical here, to help inspire students.
Write one question that you hear about assessments, any challenge that you hear, questions that you hear, concerns that you hear at your school on assessment. Then we'll stand up and share your questions with at least 5 other people in the room.
Or do I say to myself, no, actually that child is definitely a 4, I'll leave it at a 4 and ignore the 0. Is that a bad day? Yeah.
An outlier.
And then how long can I go with that? Like, if there's another bad day.
And when is it appropriate to use multiple criterion to assess students? And what about...
You should be able to cater to different learning styles. There are some that like to work digitally, some that like to draw, or some that like to talk. In the same way, with participants, you should have activities so that you can cater in different sessions to different learning styles.
People can now cut up all the outside fabric and use different stuffing and different engines and make a Franken toy out of it. And that's a step we're unfortunately not going to do because of time. But in your schools, I would be excited to see what happens.
So how does that change the movement if you take that?
One of the most important skills that we can model is the ability to be completely flexible, because children are unpredictable and we need to adjust to their needs rather than them adjusting to our needs. You've got the cam going that way.
I would never have thought that toys inside are so complex.
Isn't that, I know, with circuit boards and
so many
everything.
details, and they come together, and like our overarching unit for the first grade is systems, and I can see this like a perfect example how different parts of the system can create a whole. So that's kind of like our central, so it's perfectly ties in there.
She's A there. B would be here. And C is here.
Just like cross out the whole thing. Using a mathematical model too as evidence.
The ratios, it would work really well.
So they can play with those different variables.
What we model is what we want them to take back. So it's a great value that is added to their professional development when they take this solid material and the solid best practices back to their school.
Communicate the relationship between geographic location and diet. The first question was, it fits the video well, but could it be expanded to cover a bit more?
Every task should allow the students to reach the highest achievement level. So that is something that was good that she shared. B.
It seems to be. Okay, the engagement you have all been waiting for.
Some sort of stuffing, right? And it's different, like this is more.
If it moves, why does it move? What parts does it need? Be as detailed as you can. So spend about 10 minutes observing the animal, drawing it, and making your notes all in one color, because we'll switch colors later. Go for it. In the workshops that I lead, you will definitely see teachers collaborating. I think the most important thing to establish in the morning of the very first day is safety for the teachers to be able to express themselves without fear of judgment by their peers or by you. So when you come into the workshop, I think that the most important thing you can establish are some group activities that really set the tone for safety. How does it work? What does it do? What does it do?
Would you ever think of inviting a theater or a teacher, media studies teacher into your class to talk about how you would adapt a literary text to?
It's a little abstract. So what would you guys pick?
What you're going to see in my workshop is people who are engaged, people who are excited and inspired about learning, and people who are collaborating and learning so that they're learning together.
All right, come on, back on track.
Ultimately, I think the transformative experiences in workshops are when people are doing something, whether it be kinesthetic or cognitively interacting with each other or collaborating to try and solve a problem together. And if they're engaged in that activity, it's authentic learning,
What do you want?
We need a small one.
I think the most important thing that you can do during the workshop is to be sure that you do a lot of listening and that you model the important silence that a workshop leader or a classroom teacher needs in order to really tune in to the needs of participants. And then to be ready with a question. I think the less we say as workshop leaders, the richer our presentation becomes.
Can you stop for just a second and look at everyone's expression?
So we'll go ahead and we'll see if we can make a circle back in the back here. And then the discussion will be on this question up here, this idea of an international education for all, student access.
What is meant by access? Are we talking about special education? Are we talking about, the economically disadvantaged? What are we defining for access?
You want to have a good handle on inquiry-based strategies because the program is student-centered and inquiry-based, and you want to model for your participants what that might look like. People with their differences can also be right. What does that mean in inclusion? What does that mean with special needs?
I think that's been the most powerful thing for us is to actually make sure to keep those students at the forefront of this conversation of accessibility.
Don't be afraid to ask the question you don't know the answer to. You'll be amazed at the discussion it creates, and you'll be amazed at the answer it creates that you never expected.
So cardboard box, foamies to make the gears, all right? Skewers to make the axle that goes through the middle. Do you think you can do this? Challenge. Your favorite book, story, or character illustrated in 3D for your kids at school. Go for it. When you go to the workshop, it's very participatory. How can you teach creativity without asking people to join in and have a go? So what you will see is a lot of supplies ranging the gamut from arts to sciences and even technology. The most important thing you can do is ideate and prototype, right? So get the ideas going and start building the prototypes. You've got lots of ideas. Build prototypes. You can always take it apart if it doesn't work. I think one of the most important learnings that workshop leaders can do in the workshop is to know when to ask the right question and know when to ask the next question.
So it turns like this and the kettle goes up, and then it turns like this and the kettle goes up, and then Hansel and Gretel are going to come along. There's Gretel and Hansel.
That is...
So that's our story.
That is awesome.
The roof